To be desired by a god is not a blessing. It is a specific kind of curse disguised as a miracle. Because in the ancient world, when the eyes of Olympus fell upon you, it didn't mean you were chosen for glory. It meant you were marked for destruction. We are taught to look at Greek mythology as a collection of heroic adventures. But if you look closer at the history of the king of gods, Zeus, you realize these are not love stories. They are survival horror stories, where the victims are left broken, transformed, or incinerated, while the god simply moves on to his next conquest. And nowhere is this terrifying reality more evident than in the tragic fates of the 7 mortals who dared to catch his eye. It began in the wealthy Phoenician kingdom of Tyre, where a princess named Europa lived a life of royal comfort, unaware that her lineage, tracing back to the nymph Libya, had already placed a target on her back. One night, the princess was plagued by a vivid and unsettling dream, where 2 women representing the continents of East and West fought violently over her body, with the Western woman claiming victory, a prophecy that Europa woke from in a cold sweat, terrified and confused. Desperate to shake off the lingering dread of the nightmare, she gathered her friends and went down to the seashore, seeking the comfort of the ocean breeze. But the eyes of Zeus were already watching from high above, filled with a predatory lust that demanded satisfaction. He did not descend as a warrior or a king, but employed a cunning deception, transforming himself into a magnificent snow-white bull, a creature so impossibly beautiful and gentle that it hypnotized the young girls. It smelled of divine ambrosia and radiated a supernatural calm, compelling Europa to climb onto its back, a decision that would seal her fate, as the animal suddenly shifted from docile pet to kidnapping monster, charging into the surf and taking the terrified girl out into the open ocean. Imagine the sheer terror of clinging to the fur of a beast as the shoreline of your home disappears, knowing you are being dragged into the unknown depths where no one can hear you scream. Zeus swam for hours until night fell, depositing the weeping and hopeless princess on the desolate shores of Crete, where she considered ending her own life rather than facing the uncertainty of her abduction. It was only then that Aphrodite appeared, not to save her, but to tell her to accept her fate as Zeus's possession, a union that would eventually birth kings like Minos and give her name to the entire continent of Europe, immortalizing her trauma in the geography of the world itself. But while Europa was given a continent, others were stripped of their very humanity, like the Princess Io, whose story is a descent into madness, fueled by the jealousy of Hera. Zeus, trying to hide his infidelity from his wife, frantically transformed Io into a white heifer, a beautiful cow, hoping to mask her identity. But Hera was not so easily fooled, and in a twist of cruel irony, she praised the animal and demanded it as a gift, leaving Zeus no choice but to hand over his lover to be treated as livestock. Hera did not just imprison the girl, she handed her over to Argos, a nightmarish entity with 100 eyes covering his body, a jailer who never slept because only a few of his eyes would close at a time, ensuring that Io was under a state of constant, unblinking surveillance. For months, the princess was trapped in the body of a beast, her human mind screaming behind the mute mouth of a cow, watched by a monster that saw everything, until Zeus finally sent Hermes, the messenger god, to conduct a lethal rescue mission. Hermes, disguised as a shepherd, used the hypnotic melody of his flute to lull the 100-eyed monster into a deep slumber, systematically boring the creature until every single eyelid drooped heavy with sleep, allowing the god to sever Argos's head with a single strike of his sword. But death is rarely the end in these myths, as Hera mourned her servant by placing his 100 eyes onto the tail of her sacred peacock, creating the plumage we see today, and then turned her rage back to Io, unleashing a fury of stinging gadflies to chase the cow across the world. The torture was relentless, a cloud of buzzing pain that drove Io to the brink of insanity, forcing her to wander all the way to Egypt before Zeus finally intervened, restoring her human form, but leaving her with the pale white skin of the cow she once was, a permanent scar of her ordeal. If Io's story was one of physical torture, then the story of Lamia is a tale of psychological annihilation that birthed a monster. Lamia was once a stunning queen of Libya, a daughter of Poseidon, whose beauty was so arresting that it ensnared Zeus, leading to a passionate affair and the birth of several children. But this happiness was a fragile glass that Hera shattered with absolute brutality. In a fit of vengeance, Hera didn't just kill Lamia's children. She forced the mother to witness their destruction, and in some darker recountings, compelled Lamia to devour her own offspring, driving the queen into a shattered state of psychosis. The curse did not end with death. Hera robbed Lamia of the ability to close her eyes, denying her the release of sleep, so that the image of her dead children was permanently burned into her vision, ensuring she could never look away from her tragedy. Zeus, taking pity on the wreckage of his former lover, granted her the grotesque ability to remove her own eyeballs, just to get a moment of rest. But the damage was done, and Lamia warped into a child-eating demon, a vampiric boogeyman who stalked the night to steal the lives of others, to replace the ones she lost. Sometimes the danger wasn't Hera's wrath, but the overwhelming power of Zeus himself, as the princess Semele of Thebes would tragically discover. Unlike his other conquests, Zeus came to Semele in the dark, hiding his true divine form. But Hera disguised herself as an old nursemaid and planted a seed of doubt in the girl's mind, whispering that perhaps her lover was not a god at all, but a liar. Manipulated by this doubt, Semele made Zeus swear an unbreakable oath on the river Styx to grant her one wish, and then trapped him with her request to see him in his true, unfiltered glory, just as he appeared on Olympus. Zeus knew this was a death sentence, but bound by his oath, he revealed his true form, a being of pure cosmic energy and lightning, and the mortal Semele was instantly incinerated by the sheer heat and radiance of his presence, her body reduced to a pile of smoking ash in a split second. Yet amidst the ashes, life persisted, as Zeus snatched their unborn child Dionysus from the remains and sewed the fetus into his own thigh, serving as a surrogate father until the god of wine could be born from his own flesh. The disguises of Zeus became increasingly bizarre and predatory, as seen in the seduction of Leda, the queen of Sparta, whom he approached not as a man or a bull, but as a swan fleeing from an eagle. Feigning vulnerability, the god manipulated the queen's protective instincts, and under the guise of a frightened bird, he assaulted her, setting in motion a pregnancy that would defy nature. Leda did not give birth to children in the human sense, but laid 2 eggs, from which hatched a quartet of legendary figures, including Helen of Troy and the twins Castor and Pollux, blurring the lines between beast and man. It is a chilling realization that the Trojan War and the fall of great civilizations can be traced back to a single moment of deception by a riverbank, where a god pretended to be prey to catch a queen. Even goddesses were not safe from Zeus's paranoia, as Metis, the goddess of prudence, found out that being the wife of the king offered no protection when a prophecy threatened his throne. Warned by the oracle that Metis would bear a son who would overthrow him, just as he had overthrown his father Cronus, Zeus decided to end the cycle of violence with an act of cannibalism. He tricked his pregnant wife into transforming into a drop of water or a fly, and simply swallowed her whole, imprisoning her within his own body to prevent the prophecy from taking root. But the child would not be denied, and years later, Zeus was struck by a headache so splitting and agonizing that he begged Hephaestus to crack his skull open with an axe. From the open wound in the god's head sprang Athena, fully grown and armored, the goddess of wisdom, born from the father, but carrying the intellect of the mother, who remained digested and dissolved within Zeus's stomach for eternity. Finally, there is the heart-wrenching tale of Callisto, a huntress who swore a vow of chastity to Artemis, only to be targeted by Zeus and subsequently punished by Hera for a crime she did not choose to commit. After giving birth to Zeus's son Arcus, Callisto was stripped of her beauty and humanity, as Hera cursed her skin to sprout coarse fur, her hands to twist into claws, and her voice to degrade into a terrifying growl, transforming her into a bear. For years she wandered the forests she once hunted, retaining her human consciousness, but trapped in a monster's body, forced to watch from the shadows as her son grew up without her, afraid that if she approached, he would kill her. The tragedy reached its climax when her son, Arcus, now a hunter, encountered the bear and raised his spear to kill the beast, unaware he was aiming at his own mother's heart. Zeus intervened at the last second, snatching them both from the earth and casting them into the stars as Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. But even in the heavens, Hera's malice followed them, as she forbade the constellations from ever dipping below the horizon into the ocean, forcing them to circle the sky endlessly without rest. So when you look up at the night sky, do not just see the beauty of the stars. See them for what they truly are, a celestial graveyard of victims, immortalized in their suffering, serving as a warning that in the eyes of the gods, we are nothing more than playthings to be used, broken, and displayed.